Hello again and welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a big thank you to Sven Kuber for sending in some awesome pictures of his 7th Cadian Regiment, led by Castellan Yeet, totally not Creed, and a kit-bashed colour Sergeant Yell. A kit-bashed because apparently the fine cast model didn't come through too well. But absolutely love the kit bash, Sven. Looks really good. Actually, yeah, definitely you've done the model proud there. And I actually really like the colour scheme. Reminds me a lot of my old Mordian 50th rifle colour schemes with the red and the tan. Although I have to say, you did it a lot better than I did it. Man, and I don't think you'll need to do any sort of restoration project on your guys. But really cool army. So thank you for sending some pictures in. Really clean, really crisp. You know, really, my inner Mordian is very proud. Very impressed, I should say. So thanks for these pictures in. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page or email them directly to me, and there will be emails and links and whatnot down in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. Now today, guys, I want to take a look at the old fast attack section of the Imperial Guard. In fact, specifically, I want to take a look at the Hellhound and its variants. Now, I have done several videos in the past on the Hellhound, but it recently got a little bit of a points change in the latest FAQ, and now that we've let that FAQ settle down a little bit, Games Workshop have tweaked it and they poked it and they prodded it, but it seems to be settled. I want to take a look at the Hellhound and just really, you know, take a look at some of the variants as well. And now that we've had some time to take a look at 9th edition as a whole and the meta that seems to be coming out of it, is there some extra points that can be gleaned from the Hellhound and its sisters and its brothers, the Bane Wolf and the Devil Dog? So that's what we're looking at today. Now, for those of you that are maybe first getting into the Guard, this might be your first rodeo, or maybe you're an experienced veteran but you've not had a huge amount of experience with the old Hellhound and its brothers and sisters, then I'll quickly go over what the stats for that vehicle is. Now, it is in the fast attack slot, which is actually one that not a lot of people tend to, well, they don't tend to lean on it too much in the Guard. You'll often find a few Sentinels and a Hellhound here and there, but by and large, it's not like the Elite slot, which is chocker full of options. The Imperial Guard fast attack section is rather limited. You know, we have Hellhounds and their two variants. We have the two variants of Scout Sentinel, and that's it. Rough Riders are a Legends option now, which, whilst they're cool as hell, means we can't really consider them from a competitive point of view. I think you can probably take them to a Games Workshop event, but you couldn't take them to a proper tournament. Sorry, Games Workshop, using the term proper tournament might be a bit insulting to you, but considering you spy on my videos and nerf every tactic that I come to, I feel I can be a little harsh to you occasionally. Anyway, let's take the tinfoil hat off, let's desubscribe, unsubscribe from Infowars.com, and let's get on with today's video. So, the Hellhound. It's got your standard Imperial Guard sort of profile, a bit very similar to a Chimera. It's got a 3+ save, which is, you know, decent durability, no invulnerable save. Leadership 7 doesn't really matter apart from for some psychic powers that'll be targeting you. The weapon skill 6+, you know, you're not going to hit much in combat. Now the ballistic skill does degrade for some of the variants. This isn't a problem. But for other variants it is. But it goes from a 4+ to a 5+ to a 6+, and the brackets are 6 to 11, 3 to 5, and 1 to 2. So it doesn't really start hitting on a 6+ until you get it down to 1 to 2, which is quite nice. It means it's relatively, you know, you really have to get this thing below half health before it starts not hitting very much. And then you've got your standard strength of 6, then you have toughness 7. Strength and toughness with vehicles always seem to be one different in the Guard. 11 wounds, which is nice, but also frustrating. It's nice because it's an extra wound on top of, you know, your standard Chimera hull. It's frustrating because now in 9th edition, with the way that the secondary objectives work, having 11 wounds in that vehicle means that it's worth 2 victory points for bringing it down and not 1 victory point, unlike the Chimera and the Sentinels, which are worth 1 victory point because of the new way that they rework that secondary objective. So that's something to bear in mind. Something to bear in mind, and we'll get into that later on. Now, you have 3 variants with the Hellhound. You've got this. They all have the same hull profile, but the weapons are different. So your standard Hellhound comes with an Inferno cannon. It's 16 inches, heavy 2d6, strength 6, AP -1, 1 damage. This weapon automatically hits its target. You then have the Devil Dog, which is equipped with a melter cannon. Not a multi-melter, but a melter cannon. A unique weapon, which is Assault D3, Blast now, I believe. Strength 8, AP -4, D6 damage, and it has been given the melter upgrade, I believe. So if you're within half range, it is D6 plus 2 damage, which is quite nice. Instead of the usual roll 2 dice when inflicting damage and discard the lowest result. So it's nice. It's all been brought up into line with the regular melter weapon, which is good to know. And then you have the chem cannon of the Bane Wolf, which has only got an 8-inch range. It only has D6 shots, but it is AP -3. It is 1 damage, and it always wounds on a 2+ unless targeting a vehicle, which is interesting. So less shots, but better AP, and much more likely to wound. Now, traditionally, it is people have always gone to the Hellhound as the go-to options, and the other 2 variants of the Hellhound, the Devil Dog and the Bane Wolf, have kind of been overlooked and have essentially been written off. I think it's interesting as the world changes around us, as the meta swirls and shifts and ebbs and flows. I think that the Hellhound has started to lose some of its gloss, some of its shine, and the Bane Wolf and the Devil Dog, if not as good as the Hellhound, are definitely not the write-off that they used to be. They definitely want. It's no longer Hellhound or bust, is what I'm trying to say. You've got the other 2 options, and taking them now won't necessarily, be the worst choice. It won't necessarily be, why the hell did you take that? It was, you just you took those. I guess they're not quite as good, but by strictest definition, they are the worst choice. But what I mean by that is they're no longer this is a terrible choice. Okay, now why is that? Well, you see, the Inferno cannon having a 16-inch range used to be a big deal. It used to mean that it was one of the only flamers that had a range greater than 8 inches, which means it was good for Overwatch. But now all flamers, even hand flamers, have got a 12-inch range, which is kind of all you need. That 12-inch range is fine. The extra 4 inches at the 16-inch doesn't really come into it. It's not really a big deal. The other thing is that with the rise of the twin heavy flamer Chimera, the Hellhound's kind of being upstaged by its sort of bastard stepchild, which is the double flamer Chimera, because the double flamer Chimera still gets 2d6 heavy flamer shots. Now I know you can put a whole heavy flamer on the Hellhound, and therefore technically it has 3d6 flamer shots versus the Chimera's 2d6 flamer shots. But then the Chimera has better battlefield utility, and it can do like 90% of what you're taking a Hellhound for, but also has guys inside it. So, and also more importantly, it's giving up less victory points. So if you're taking a Hellhound to strictly, burn people, then you might as well get a 2-in-1 and take a Chimera, a double heavy flamer. I mean, if you're taking a Hellhound and you're taking Chimeras, you might as well save yourself some points, combine the battlefield rolls, and take a double heavy flamer Chimera. That's what I was trying to say. So it's kind of interesting how the Hellhound has kind of fallen from grace a little bit, or it started to be upstaged by the up-and-comer. The other thing to say is that hordes are really not as big a deal in 9th edition as they were in 8th edition. I mean, no matter how hard Games Workshop tried, hordes seem to stick around for a lot of 8th, and the only way they really got rid of them was by just making Marines just ridiculously overpowered and just giving them the most anti-horde they could possibly give. so which is kind of funny. But yeah, so we're not really the strength 6 of the Inferno Cannon is nice when we're facing a lot of armies like Raven Wing, which have, I always want to say Raven Guard, so I always hesitate. Raven Wing, which are bikes, they're toughness 5, and we're seeing heavy intercessors, which are toughness 5. We're seeing Death Guard, which is toughness 5. So having the strength 6 of the whole of the Inferno Cannon is nice. It's nice. There's not even a but to that. I was going to say there's a but, but it is just nice, and that might be one thing that helps helps you keep those dedicated Hellhounds and not just the twin heavy flame chimeras in the battlefield. Is it enough? I don't think we have got enough metadata to go off just yet, but it definitely seems like people are ditching Hellhounds and combining battlefield roles with double flamer chimeras and saving on some. If you can only afford to give away so many victory points by your vehicles blowing up because the enemy starts picking the anti-vehicle secondary trait against you, secondary objective against you, and you've got to start picking between Hellhounds and Lehman Russes. Most of the time people are going to be picking Lehman Russes. I think that's kind of why we started seeing the Hellhound decrease. People are starting to have to make those hard choices, and people would rather take a Lehman Russ and then take a heavy flamer chimera. Okay, so then we start looking at the other weapon options. And the first one that I want to look at is the Bane Wolf. Now I have a little soft spot for the Bane Wolf because it's a really cheap option now. The Hellhound went down from 120 points to 110 points. The Bane Wolf's gone down from 110 to a flat 100, which is really nice. In fact, that makes it the cheapest of all the variants. The Devil Dog and the Benziger Hellhound are 110 points, but the Bane Wolf is only 100, and that's really nice. Now its weapon doesn't do as much damage, in theory. It only has the 1d6 and it only has the 8-inch range, which does mean you have to get really close to the enemy for it to work. I mean, I'm looking on the FAQ now for the Imperial Guard. I'm looking at weapon updates and I can't see a chem cannon in there, which means it's probably been overlooked by Games Workshop. Maybe it'll get improved, but at this point it still only has the 8-inch range, which means it is the shortest range flamer weapon that I know of. So fair enough to it, but that's not as big a problem as it used to be. You see, and I forgot to mention it before, but I'm glad I get the opportunity to come back around to it, is another reason why the Hellhound was so favoured by people and that 16-inch range with the Inferno Cannon over the 8-inch range of the Chem Cannon was because of Overwatch. Because every unit used to be able to Overwatch in 8th edition, and now you have to spend a stratagem to do it. So it used to be that, well, if you try and charge my Hellhound, doesn't really matter where you are, I'm going to blast you with 2d6 Inferno Cannon shots on the way in. Now that Overwatch is a one-off and you rarely see people using it, it's generally just not considered worth a CP for the chance that you'll do a bit of damage to the enemy on the way in. It kind of flips that on its head. The Chem Cannon's 8-inch range is no longer really a big deal anymore, and the Inferno Cannon's longer range is no longer really a big deal anymore. From an Overwatch perspective, it doesn't really matter. So the fact that it's 10 points cheaper, the fact that the Overwatch situation has been flipped on its head is interesting. The other thing is the way the Chem Cannon works. Now it's only D6 shots, fair enough, but it's AP -3 and it always wounds on a 2+. Now that means when we're looking at enemy units like Bikers, like Plague Marines, that this thing is always going to wound them on 2s. There are loads, if we look at Death Guard for example, there are a lot of ways that various armies out there have of boosting their toughness or -1 to wound. There's lots of stuff out there. Now this Chem Cannon does help get past that because you're wounding on 2s. I, however, would argue that the Chem Cannon could be in a really tricky spot when it comes to things like transhuman physiology, and now we're starting to see a lot of Death Wing come in. A lot of people were crazy about the Raven Wing with the Dark Angels, but I'm starting to see in the competitive chats and with my floor to the ear to the floor, that the Deathwing with that basically army-wide transhuman is making a bit of a comeback. And it is actually the Deathwing which is a bit of a sleeper rather than the Ravenwing, which is sort of the more obviously more powerful of the wings. So in that case, the Devil Dog, it might be cheaper and it might not, it might be wounding all those Plague Marines on 2s. Mortarion flies up to you, you give him a burst from the chem cannon, you're like, ha, eat. He tries to dissolve you with chemicals and you just start dissolving him with chemicals. But I think when you start coming across, if you're in a tournament and you start coming across Deathwing, I think the chem cannon is going to start really struggling. Because I would imagine that the Deathwing and transhuman physiology overrides the 2+ to wound thing. I imagine that's how it would work, because you always wound on 2+, but then they can never be wounded on greater than a 4+, so their thing overrides your thing? Probably. I don't know, maybe that needs clarifying. But if anyone knows, I've researched and I couldn't find an answer, and I always err on the side of caution. But how will poison work, and how does the chem cannon work in regards to transhuman? That would be really cool. If anyone knows that answer, I'd really appreciate it down in the comment section. So I'd say the Devil Dog is, the Bane Wolf is still a really cheap version, but overall, and in many situations, I think it'll be really powerful, but I think it does have a really stark Achilles heel. And I think probably the Hellhound is still the better choice overall. Now, the one that I think is interesting is the Devil Dog. Devil Dog, I think, has a place now. And I think it's a place as an anti-meta unit. So, number one, it's AP -4. Now, that means that you're going to be putting people straight onto their invulnerable saves. Straight with that, it's strength 8, it's AP -4, it's D6 damage. So you're putting people straight onto the invulnerable saves, which is really good. The other thing is that it has that whole, it's got a 24-inch range, but then if you're within 12, it's just D6 +2. So when you start looking at enemy units like Blightlord Terminators, when you start looking at units like Ravenwing Bikes, when you start looking at units like Deathwing Terminators, yes, all of those are, you're either wounding them on 3s or you're wounding them on 4s because they're inbuilt transhuman. But if you get a wound through, you kill one. You just straight up kill one. And don't forget that the Devil Dog traditionally is taken with a hull multi-melter. So when you're actually looking at the Devil Dog now, and you're looking at its chosen sort of battlefield role and its traditional loadout, it's actually not putting out D3 melter cannon shots, it's actually putting out D3 +2. That's how you should be looking, which means it's more reliable. You're looking at an average of 4 melter shots from that vehicle for a relatively cheap package. And that's not too bad, really. You've got 110 points, you have to pay for your multi-meld on top of that, fair enough. But you don't need to be paying for things like track guards. You see, with the Hellhound and the Bane Wolf, you kind of have to take track guards with them, because otherwise they struggle to stay mobile the whole game. Devil Dog doesn't need that because it's got a long-range weapon, and the multi-melter and the melter cannon have got 24 range. It can happily sit back and blast things. Now, you do have to hit with those weapons. You do have to hit with them. And it only has a miss skill of 4+, and it does degrade. All of those things are major negatives. And I won't fluff it up anyway. I won't fluff it up. They're major negatives. However, we have been blessed with a number of ways of getting round those negatives. I mean, first and foremost, you have things like, just standard codex, you have things like Destroy Firstborn Pride. It gives you a +1 to hit. Your Devil Dog is now running around hitting things on 3s with its melter cannons. It's like having a tank commander with melter cannons. Okay? But it's not as obvious a target, and it's much cheaper than taking a tank commander. So there's that. If I was to take a Devil Dog, I wouldn't be running 3 or 4 or 5 of them or anything like that. And yes, you can take them in squadrons, so you could do that. I would take a Devil Dog. to supplement my 3 or 4 Leman Russes, I just swap one out for a Devil Dog, save myself a few points, and still slap that Firstborn Pride in it every single turn. That's how I would run a Devil Dog as a Destroyer. If you know, even if Chaos continues to be on the ascendancy and continues to be, you know, and Death Guard continue to be shaking things up and snapping necks and cashing checks and burning and churning, then you've got things like Vengeance for Cadia. You know, you slap on a Devil Dog, it's rerolling all hits, it's rerolling all wounds. That's really nice. You've got Yarrick. I mean, Yarrick is just a good old character who gives everyone around a reroll ones. You can't go wrong with that. If you're Cadian, you have Vengeance for Cadia. Again, if I was running a Cadian army, I'd probably slap a single Devil Dog in there, keep him nice and cheap, and just have him driving around Devil Dogging stuff and taking advantage of, you know, if you stay still, a Devil Dog as Cadian could just stay still and shoot out those melter shots with rerolling ones to hit, and then you've got overlapping fields of fire. Am I saying spam Devil Dogs? No. I am saying that taking one is an alright addition to your list. At the end of the day, we are in the age of Melter. Last edition was the age of Plasma. Now we are in the age of Melter. And if we have a vehicle whose purpose is to kill things with Melter, then it is not going to be a bad choice. It'll be low profile. People won't expect it. People won't be bothered by it. People will be targeting your tank commanders first. They'll be targeting your full payload Manticores first. And if you have a Devil Dog and it is able to run rampant and do some damage, you're going to be having a good time. And if they target it, then they're not targeting your other things. It is a cheap distraction card effects unit. But unlike the regular Hellhound, it doesn't blow up and start killing your own guys on 4+ with mortal wounds. So that's why I think the Devil Dog might be in there. One last thing to mention. Despite the blast rule being in existence, we don't see it very often, and we are starting to see in the meta big units coming back. We're not talking big units of Horde, we're talking people turning up with a big 10-man squad of Blightlord Terminators, a big 10-man squad of bike, or maybe not full 10-man squad of bikers, but that's 5 or 6. You know, we're seeing big squads of these elite units set up. I've seen a list which is looking at taking a big 10-man squad of Deathwing Knights. We have got 10-man squads of Sanguinary Guard, 10-man squads of Death Company. All of the big nasties are being taken in blocks of 10, and the reason for this is because it makes stratagem use on them really, really efficient, really, really nice. Why is that important? The Devil Dog has the blast keyword, which means on a unit with 6 or more, it's getting maximum shots. See, it only fires D3. It only fires D3 shots. And the blast special rule means if there's a unit with 6 or more in it, or 6 to 10, you get a minimum of 3. And then if it's more than 10, you get maximum shots against it. But for the Devil Dog, because it only has a D3 blast weapon, basically any unit which has more than 5 models in it, you get maximum shots. You're at that threshold straight away. And when you start thinking about that, it starts pumping out, you know, against these big, horrible, nasty units. This thing's pumping out a guaranteed 5 melter shots a turn. And as I mentioned, you've got ways of making sure that those things hit. And that's good. You know, when you've got horrible units appearing in every army, big Death Star units, we're seeing the return of the Death Star. We're seeing the return of the big Chungus units coming back. The Devil Dog starts having a place in those things, in that meta again. Now, if out of all of those options that we've spoken about, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Hellhound is still probably your best jack of all trades, master of none. But I think serious consideration needs to be given to the Devil Dog. I know, of all the ones that I thought would make a comeback, the Devil Dog wasn't on my list, but it definitely has a place, potentially, as a, and I'm being a bit careful with my words, because obviously a lot of this is, we're looking at general meta things here. It might be different for your local area, but it's starting to be more relevant. And the Hellhound's effectiveness, it's getting reduced by the fact that it's not as good against those big, terrible units, big, horrible units, I should say, and it's being upstaged by the Heavy Flamer Chimera. You know, it's one of those where taking variety and the spice of life, I keep chucking that phrase around for a reason. You don't need to turn up with 3 Leman Russes, 3 Basilisks, 3 Manticores, 3 Devil Dogs. No. 3 Tank Commanders, yeah. Couple of full payload Manticores, yeah, fine. Don't need 3 of them though. But even just 1. Well, you know, we want 2 full payload Manticores, but you know, a single Devil Dog, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a sprinkle here, a sprinkle there. We've got to do that in the Guard now because a lot of our overwhelming always take 3 units. The points have shifted. The points are tighter. We've got more expensive. The games have stayed the same size. The other people have stayed cheaper. We've got to start using tricksy tricks rather than overwhelming just craziness, because a lot of people, you know, don't want to paint up like 300 guardsmen to do it. Anyway, what do you guys think? Am I crazy? Am I mad? Do I need to be investigated? What do you think about the whole Devil Dog making a comeback? Is the Bane Wolf ever going to be good? What can be done to make it good? Let me know down in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.